Mr. and Mrs. Afolabi lived in the city with their two children, Ibukun and Ayomide. Ibukun was 17 years old and a year older than Ayomide. Although Ayomide was the younger one, she was more hardworking and obedient than her elder sister, Ibukun. The holidays had just begun, and both girls were at home. Usually, Ibukun would wake up to find Ayomide doing her share of the house chores, and instead of doing hers, she would either beg Ayo to help her clean up or complain and grumble while doing them. It was a Saturday, and the family was at the dining table having breakfast. A voice broke the silence that engulfed the table. Buku and Ayo, you both will be spending your holiday at your grandma's place this year, Mrs. Afolabi announced. Why? Who enjoys going to the village for holidays? Ibuku said with a frown. Ibuku, don't argue. After all, you went to the village last year's holiday, Mr. Afolabi replied. And so, she protested, it makes up why we shouldn't go this year, Ibuku replied. Or didn't you see how our body reacted to the mosquito bites and polluted water? She argued. Ibuku, the surroundings are no longer polluted as there are now channels constructed by the government. You and Ayo can always use mosquito repellent creams for the bites, Miss Afolabi replied. I miss Grandma so much. I'm sure she feels lonely staying alone in the village. I would really love to spend the holiday with her. That was all Ayo said. The next day, Mr. Afolabi drove both of them to the village along with the things they needed for their stay. As soon as they drove the car into the compound and parked beside a huge mango tree, Ibuku jumped down from the vehicle, greeted Grandma in an almost inaudible voice, and stormed into the house. What's wrong with her? Mama asked. Nothing, she must be tired, that's all, Mr. Folabi said. An hour later, Mr. Folabi drove back to the city after being prepared a sumptuous meal of eba and ewedu soup Mama had prepared while waiting for their arrival. Ah, God! How on earth am I supposed to deal with these network problems? I can't even make a single call, Ibuku lamented. You can make the call outside. I'm sure you'll find some network signal outside the compound, Mama said. She was slowly getting tired of her complaints, but she was once an annoying teenager, and as such, decided to cut her some slack. Sister, who do you want to call? It's already getting late. Can't it wait till tomorrow? Aya stopped her by the door and asked. No, it can't wait. Ibuku replied, and with that, she stormed out of the house. Aya sighed and turned to look at her grandmother. Don't worry, Mama. That's how she behaves. She'll soon be back, Aya said and went back to her seat with her grandmother. Ibuku had been walking around the compound searching for network signal, but there was none. She then proceeded to search for it outside Mama's compound. After walking about 3 blocks away from the house, she finally gave up and decided to go back home. You seem lost, said a voice Ibuku could barely recognize, and it startled her. Could I be of any help to you? The voice continued when Ibuku gave no response. Ibuku turned to see a very stout figure standing behind her. Do I know you? Ibuku replied. My name is Kayode, and I live in this village. I see you are not very familiar with the area. Yes, actually. I came here with my sister to spend the holiday with my grandma. Oh, I see. Well, if you do not mind, I could take you around the village on a tour, Kayode said. Wow, that would be nice, but it's getting late already. Would you mind if I said tomorrow? No, tomorrow it is, if that's okay with you. Yes, it is. Thank you very much. And I better get going before my grandma gets worried. And with that, Ibuku left, and Kayode stood staring with a mischievous smile spread across his face. The next day, Ibuku, knowing fully well that Mama would never allow her to leave the house alone, decided to sneak out quietly without informing anyone. She took her bottle of water and her phone. When she arrived at the place she and Kayode had met, she called out his name and he came out from behind a tall guava tree. Ah, you are here quite early, he said. So where do we start from? He continued. Anywhere? but you have to be quick about it, Ibuku replied. Ayo, Ayomide, come here. Where are you? Mama called out. Yes, Mama, I'm here. What is it? Ayomide said. Where is your sister Ibuku? I want her to follow me to the market. She should be inside, Ayo replied. I have checked the whole house, and that is why I came to ask you. Ah, I don't know. I haven't seen her since morning. Or maybe she went to fetch water. But the whole drums are filled with water, Mama said. Then where could she have gone early this morning without informing anyone? Ayo questioned. Meanwhile, Ibuku and Kayode had been walking through a bush path for what seemed like ages. Where are we going, Kayode? My legs are already hurting me, Ibuku cried out. We are going to see the famous Blue River, Kayode replied. It was well known among the natives that the famous Blue River was home to the ancient river goddess. A few years ago, when the villagers still served her, the goddess kept the people in bondage and wreaked havoc in the land till they overpowered her. Although a few people still served her, they did it secretly as the king made a rule against it. These servants of the Blue River goddess had the wicked tradition of sacrificing young maidens to her. Mr. Kayode, we have been walking for a long time. Shouldn't we stop? Ibuku complained. We are almost there. Listen, can you hear the sound of the water? He replied. I can't hear anything, Ibuku said out of frustration. Listen closely. You will hear it. I will savor this moment as it is the last thing you will hear. Happiness seeped out of his voice as he spoke. What's that supposed to mean? It means exactly what I said. With that, he placed a cloth over her face and she fainted. Back home, Mama decided to go to the river to search for Ibuku, while Ayomide stayed back in case she returned home. On her way to the river, she saw her friend Iya Sukura. Where are you heading to so early in the morning? I'm going to the river to look for Ibuku, my granddaughter. Ibuku, I saw her with a man I haven't seen around here before. They were heading towards the Blue River. Mobe, Blue River, why? Mama said anxiously. I don't know. Oh, this is not what I'm thinking, Mama added. Don't you think I should inform the police? Yasukura asked. Okay, do so. Let me head towards the river, Mama replied. Please, on your way to the station, also inform Ayo to call her parents. Immediately Mama arrived at the river. She saw some men wearing white, all chanting incantations while holding hands. Stop! She screamed. What do you fools think you're doing? Let my granddaughter go now! She shouted again, but the men didn't listen to her. They just continued shouting louder and louder. Ibuku couldn't even speak. Her voice was cloaked in her mouth, and no sound could be heard. The only thing Mama heard was her mumbling and trying desperately to scream. Mama tried to move, but she couldn't move any further. She felt rooted to the ground. The only thing she could do was hope help would arrive soon. But it didn't, and before her very eyes, the water began to stir, and something emerged from inside, the river goddess. Mama watched the water swallow her granddaughter and the men who were chanting. The river goddess looked at her and laughed before returning into the river. Till today, Ibuku's body and the bodies of the other men have not been found.